7 years. That's how long I gave this company my time, my loyalty, my ideas. And for 7 years, they underpaid me, used me, and told me to be grateful. I stayed silent, biting my tongue while they got rich off my work. Until one day, I decided to stop playing nice. I didn't just quit. I dismantled their entire operation, client by client, legally, quietly, and without leaving a trace. This is how I destroyed the company that thought I was disposable. If you've ever stayed loyal to a job that didn't value you, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you've ever been underpaid or underestimated, and drop a comment if you've ever wanted to say, enough is enough. What you're about to hear isn't just revenge. It's poetic justice served with precision. Let's get into it. You know how people always tell you that your first job out of college is just a stepping stone? That it's not about the money, it's about the experience? Yeah, I believe that too. I was fresh out of school, full of ideas and enthusiasm, and thrilled to land a job at a growing mid-sized marketing firm. The salary was not great, but I told myself it was worth it. Pay your dues, they said. You'll rise fast. And for a while, I did exactly that. I was the first one in, the last one out. Volunteered for every late-night presentation, jumped in to fix client messes that weren't even mine, helped coworkers hit their deadlines, and kept my mouth shut when credit for my ideas mysteriously went to someone else. At first, I thought I was building a reputation. And I was, just not the one I expected. By the end of my first year, I had become the go-to guy for everything. Need a crisis fixed over the weekend? I was your man. Someone on the team fell short? I pick up the slack. A huge pitch needed last-minute revisions at 1 a.m.? Of course, I was on it. I wore that overwork like a badge of honor. My manager would pat me on the back and say, "You're the engine that keeps this team running." I'd get shout-outs in meetings, but when race season came, nothing, just vague promises and "let's talk next quarter." That next quarter line, it became a ritual. Still, I held on because I wanted to believe that if I just kept proving myself, they'd see my worth. They had to, but things started to crack in year 3. I was training a new hire, fresh out of grad school. Bright kid, asked good questions. One day, while going over workflow systems, he accidentally forwarded me a document, a company-wide salary spreadsheet. I opened it and I stared. He was making almost 30% more than me. Let me repeat that. I was training him, teaching him how to do the job I had perfected over the past 3 years. And he was earning a third more than me from day one. My face went numb. My chest tightened. I scrolled through the spreadsheet, heart pounding. Every name, every number. It was all there. People who had been there less than a year were making more than I was after 3. Some of them weren't even that good. One of them had literally plagiarized a campaign deck, and I'd helped cover for her, and I was the lowest paid person in my department. I felt used, betrayed, but mostly humiliated. Like the butt of some elaborate inside joke I hadn't been in on for years. But you know what I did? Nothing. I showed up the next day, smiled, worked hard. Because I was scared of rocking the boat, of losing everything I had built. I told myself, just get to the next promotion cycle. Then things will change. Spoiler alert. They did in single quotes. Year 4 came. Then 5. Every review was glowing. My bosses said I was a leader without the title. I managed major client accounts, trained every new hire, and had essentially become the backbone of their digital marketing strategy. But I was still earning less than almost everyone else. The final slap in the face came when they hired a new director of growth. He was 2 levels above me, technically my manager, even though I had created the very systems he was hired to oversee. He had 0 experience in our industry. Literally came from a real estate background. Worse, he was the CEO's friend from his golf club. He made twice what I did, and in our first meeting together, he actually repeated one of my own strategies wrongly and told me to take notes on it. That night, I went home, sat in the dark, and just stared at my hands. 7 years. 7 years of loyalty, missed birthdays, late nights, stress-induced panic attacks, and for what? I looked around my tiny apartment, still decorated like a college dorm. My car was rusting. My savings were pathetic. Meanwhile, my CEO had just posted Instagram photos of his Tuscany vacation with the caption, "Work hard, play harder." I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, pulse racing, fingers twitching. Not because I was scared, but because I had finally reached a point. I didn't think I ever would. I didn't want recognition anymore. I wanted revenge. The day after that, sleepless night, I walked into the office with a smile on my face and a fire in my chest. I had crossed an invisible line in my mind. This wasn't about frustration anymore. It wasn't about being seen or validated. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my self-worth in the only language they seemed to understand: control. I started paying attention. Not to the work, but to the cracks, and let me tell you, once I looked closely, the entire company was stitched together with nothing but duct tape and blind hope. There was no standard onboarding process, no documentation on core systems. Passwords were stored in a shared Google Doc titled "Do Not Share This File." Yes, really. The company's biggest clients had been promised deliverables through dashboards and analytics tools that one person had custom built over years. Nobody else understood how they worked. Nobody had backups. I was the ghost in the machine, and management? They were clueless. They started around with overpriced consultants who recycled my work and called it strategic vision. They handed out raises to people who did nothing, and when I brought it up, they gaslit me. I remember one meeting with the CFO. I had just finished a quarterly projection report that showed my campaigns alone had brought in nearly $1.8 million in net profit. I asked if we could finally discuss my compensation. He chuckled. Actually chuckled. Then he said, "You should really learn how to think like an owner. Not every contribution can be measured in dollars. It's about team spirit." Team spirit? I wanted to scream, but instead, I smiled, because that's when I knew they weren't just exploiting me, they were mocking me. So I started planning. I wasn't going to sabotage anything directly. That would have been illegal, and I wanted to stay clean. But I was going to ensure that the systems I had built, the ones they never bothered to learn, would not survive without me. Over the next 2 months, I initiated what I now call my silent exit. Every week, I slowly began removing myself from core tasks, where once I'd fix things on the fly, I started redirecting issues to others. Let them try. Let them learn the hard way that nothing was as simple as it looked. I stopped updating internal documentation. I created templates that looked helpful but lacked real functionality, like giving someone IKEA instructions with half the pieces missing. I quietly exported and saved everything I had ever worked on: campaigns, budgets, client requests, system structures, email chains, all legally. All from my own folders. Then I began documenting their vulnerabilities, security flaws, data compliance issues, Slack channels where client info was shared without encryption, things that could trigger audits or legal inquiries. And while all this was happening, I played the part of the cheerful team player, attended birthday lunches, smiled in meetings, wrote thank you emails. I even mentored another clueless new hire with fake enthusiasm. "You're going to love it here," I told him. Every time I clicked send, I felt like a surgeon planting a time bomb in a body already riddled with infection. No one suspected a thing, and why would they? I had been the reliable one for so long that they forgot I was even capable of walking away. But I wasn't just walking, I was marching with a plan. My resignation would be the trigger, and the destruction that followed? That would be their doing, not mine. All I had to do was step back and watch it unfold. Resigning wasn't enough. I didn't want to just leave. I wanted them to feel the exact weight of what they had done, not just to me, but to every hardworking person they had dismissed, underpaid, or stepped on over the years. But here's the thing. If you want revenge to really hurt, it can't be loud. It has to be surgical. So I crafted a plan: quiet, strategic, and most importantly, legal. I started by mapping out their entire operational ecosystem, because I had practically built it. I had designed most of their automation tools, digital marketing funnels, internal performance dashboards, client trackers, everything. No one else understood them. Because over the years, I had built it all solo, not by hoarding information, but because nobody else cared to learn. Management didn't value process. They value results, and I was the results machine. But now, I would be the ghost. I created 3 fail-safe layers in my plan. Layer 1, the black hole of knowledge transfer. I began prepping my exit documentation. Or at least, the appearance of it. I created long, overly technical SOPs, standard operating procedures, filled with jargon, half steps, and missing context. Things like run dynamic triggers via backend sequence B using legacy config rules. Sounds fancy, right? Totally meaningless without me there to explain it. In meetings, I was generous with walkthroughs, but never once gave full access to my private notes or folders. I disguised confusion as complexity and painted my systems as highly customized and non-transferable. No one questioned me. After all, I was the guy who knew everything. Layer 2. The gentle unraveling. I started letting things break. Slowly. An automated campaign would misfire. I'd fix it, but take a little longer than usual. A dashboard metric would show strange anomalies. I'd shrug and say, that's weird, might be a legacy, a PI glitch. These weren't accidents. They were carefully planted trust fractures. Little moments where the team started to feel the cracks but couldn't explain them. And without answers, they leaned more and more on me, reinforcing just how irreplaceable I had become. Each time they leaned in, I leaned back. Layer 3. The legal trigger now. For the part that would twist the knife, I discovered that the company had been storing sensitive client data in unsecured folders, and worse, some of it was being shared over unencrypted channels. That's a massive breach of compliance. So I did what any responsible citizen would do. I took screenshots, saved audit trails, and stored everything offsite. All legally, no tampering, just evidence. Not for blackmail, but for the truth. And then I waited for my moment. With my plan in motion, I finally handed in my resignation. 30 days notice, professional and polite. When I told them, their reactions were exactly what I had predicted. CEO, wait. What? We can fix this. Name your number. My manager, you're seriously leaving us now, right before Q4? HR, we'll start transition documentation immediately. Could you help train the replacements? Of course, I said yes to all of it. I smiled. I trained. I gave access. But nothing they got from me could hold the system together. I spent my last 30 days burying live wires in plain sight. Every link I shared was a dead end without context. Every tool I handed off came with just follow the template, a template no one could actually use. And then, on the final day, as I walked out with my little box of personal items, I sent one last email. An anonymous tip. To their biggest client's legal team. I attached a short report. No accusations, no emotion, just facts, highlighted with dates and screenshots, showing how their confidential data was being mishandled. I CC'd a friend who worked in regulatory compliance. That was the spark. What came next? An inferno. I still remember the silence of that Friday evening, my last day. The office lights buzzed overhead. People clapped and offered the usual fake goodbye smiles, the kind you give when you're relieved someone else is finally taking the fall. They handed me a generic thank you card and a slice of sheet cake. No speeches, no send-off, just sugary frosting and awkward eye contact. Perfect. Because I didn't want a grand farewell. I wanted them comfortable, blind to what was coming. As I stepped out of that glass door for the final time, box in hand, I felt light. Not just from leaving, but from knowing that I had left behind a house of cards dressed up like a fortress. That same night, I watched my anonymous email get picked up by a compliance officer at their largest client. The subject line, urgent. Potential data breach, non-encrypted transmission logs attached. I said nothing else. No name, no threats. Just enough detail to make someone very uncomfortable because the documents I'd shared were real, and that's what made it unstoppable. 3 days later, the client suspended all activity and demanded a full internal audit, not a review. An investigation. They wanted access logs, communication threads, encryption protocols, data governance policies, all of it. And let me tell you, that company wasn't ready. They weren't just disorganized. They were completely exposed, because all the systems they depended on, all the quick fixes and duct tape dashboards were mine. They thought they could cover for it. Patched together some emergency compliance report, but everything they needed? Gone. No backups, no written documentation. No one on staff who even understood the tools I had built from scratch. I had trained their replacements using outdated templates and half-truths, and when they reached out to clarify a few things, my email bounced. I had deleted it, but the fallout didn't stop there. That audit uncovered years of sloppy digital handling, Slack messages where full client reports were shared, Unsecured Google Drive folders holding confidential info. Expired contracts that had been auto-renewed with no one reviewing terms. The client pulled their contract. That one loss? It accounted for 28% of the company's annual revenue, and it set off a chain reaction. Word travels fast in the corporate world, especially in niche industries like marketing tech. When one major client walks away citing data security risks, others don't wait to ask questions. They start calling their lawyers. 3 more clients paused contracts within 2 weeks. Revenue flatlined. Leadership scrambled. One of my old coworkers texted me, "Dude, they're freaking out. No one knows how to access anything." The director quit. HR's panicking. It's a F*** and disaster. I just replied, "That's unfortunate." But I wasn't done watching. 3 months later, I launched my own boutique consulting firm, quietly, under a new brand. No big announcement, no ex-employee drama. And within 6 months, 2 of my old company's former clients reached out to me directly. They didn't even ask about prices. They said, "You were the only one who ever knew what you were doing." And just like that, I didn't just leave. I took their crown jewels with me. The company that once ignored me was now bleeding out. It didn't happen overnight. That would have been merciful. Instead, it was a slow motion implosion. With each week, a new thread unraveled. First, their CTO stepped down. Then the director of growth, the same one who once corrected me on my own data, posted a desperate job update on LinkedIn, seeking new opportunities in digital leadership, open to short-term contracts. Short-term? Buddy, I wouldn't trust you with a Google Calendar, let alone a growth strategy. But what really hit was the CFO, the same smug guy who once told me, "Think like an owner," was suddenly tagged in a post announcing that he was taking time to pursue personal projects. That's corporate code for was asked to resign and didn't get severance. The final death knell came when their second largest client publicly announced they were ending their partnership. The statement was cold and clinical, but anyone who read between the lines knew what it meant. "We are reviewing all third-party partners to ensure compliance with our internal standards for data governance and integrity. As such, we will no longer be working with company name." Translation: they don't trust you, and once trust is gone, you're done. From the outside, it looked like a rebranding. Internally, it was carnage. I later found out they had laid off 40% of their staff. They moved into a smaller office, canceled all performance bonuses. And still, the bleeding wouldn't stop. You know what else I found out? They tried to rebuild the systems I created, only to discover the frameworks were too bespoke, too interdependent, and too undocumented to replicate without me. They even reached out to the consultant they had brought in the year before to oversee growth. He apparently told them, "Without my name, you're basically rebuilding from scratch." One wish. I could have seen their faces. Now here's the best part. I didn't steal a single file, didn't touch a line of code after I left, didn't delete a thing. Everything that collapsed did so because they never invested in the person holding it all together. And when that person walked away, on his own terms, the entire illusion fell apart. Not with an explosion, but with silence, because you don't have to burn a building down to destroy it. You just have to remove the one support beam they never noticed. And wait, looking back, I don't feel proud of what I did. I feel vindicated. I didn't take revenge out of spite. I took action out of survival, because staying silent, staying small, and staying grateful for scraps was slowly erasing me. The truth is, most companies don't collapse from external pressure. They collapse from within, from arrogance, from ignoring the people doing the real work, from confusing loyalty with weakness. I was never asking for millions. I wasn't even asking for praise. I just wanted fairness. Respect. A seat at the table. I helped build, and when they wouldn't give me that, I took away the foundation instead. Not because I'm petty, but because they taught me year after year that my work only had value when it served them. So I reminded them, quietly, legally, and irrevocably, that I was never just an employee. I was the architect. And when the architect walks away, the whole structure goes with him. Have you ever poured your heart into a job only to be treated like a line item on a spreadsheet? Then you know exactly how it feels to be invisible until the day you walk away, and suddenly everyone scrambles to fill the hole they pretended wasn't there. If this story hit a nerve, You're not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the most satisfying revenge or justice you've ever witnessed or delivered? I read every one. And if you've ever dreamed of reclaiming your power, of turning the tables on those who underestimated you, this channel is your sanctuary. So go ahead. Subscribe for more real, raw, and ruthless revenge stories. Like the video if you've ever been underpaid or undervalued. Share it with that one friend who's stuck in a job that doesn't see them. And remember, you're not asking for too much. They're just giving too little. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strategic, and never let them forget what you built.